Welcome to the Golden Gems podcast. Today we're taking a deep dive into Adrian Schoolcraft, the NYPD officer who exposed the quota system with secret recordings and was involuntarily institutionalized by his own department.
And, looking at this from the perspective of February 2026, it's really clear that this wasn't just some localized policing scandal from the early 2000s. It was a tectonic shift.
A shift in the entire architecture of American surveillance.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about a diagnostic tool, a consumer-grade Olympus WS-331M digital recorder, completely dismantling the established narrative of the quote-unquote good cop.
Right, because the technical reality of what he captured proved that the system wasn't broken. It was functioning exactly as designed.
Yeah.
And when he introduced irrefutable data to that system,
The system's only defense mechanism was to declare the data gatherer insane.
which is exactly what we're going to unpack today for you. The goal of this deep dive is a full forensic analysis of the vault of evidence he built and really the structural weight of his current silence.
To understand the structural weight, you have to look at the substrate of his psychology, who he is at his core. Because you don't just wake up one day and decide to wiretap your own precinct.
No, you definitely don't. He was born in 1976 in Killeen, Texas.
Yeah.
And you really have to look at his genealogical foundations to get it. His father, Larry Schoolcraft, was a former officer. But the roots go deeper into Texas history.
Yeah, tracing back to post-Reconstruction era law enforcement and his family lineage. That historical context is vital because it instilled this incredibly rigid, almost binary view of the code. There is the written law, and then there is the enforced law.
And for generations in his family, bridging that gap was the burden of the badge. Larry drilled that into Adrian. But the real neural rewiring, the thing that made him fundamentally incompatible with the NYPD's culture later on, happened during his time in the Navy.
From 1993 to 1997, he was on the USS Blue Ridge. But he wasn't infantry, he was a corpsman, a medic.
Right, and the medical corpsman's creed is absolute.
It is life or death. If it isn't written down, it didn't happen. If you administer a medication and fail to chart it,
Someone else might administer it again, and the patient dies.
exactly. Or conversely, if you write down something that didn't happen, you are falsifying a record that jeopardizes human life. That environment hardwired his brain to value the absolute integrity of the record over, say, unit cohesion or peer pressure.
He also spent some time at Motorola after the Navy.
Which is another crucial layer. It gave him an understanding of telecommunications, hardware integrity, and frankly, how fragile digital systems can be.
So you take this guy steeped in Texas law enforcement ancestry, disciplined by the Navy Medical Corps, and technically literate from Motorola, and in 2002, he moves to New York City.
Right into the post-9/11 NYPD, a paramilitary organization of 35,000 officers. He starts out in Operation Impact in the 75th Precinct.
But the friction really ignites when he's transferred to the 81st Precinct in Bedford-Stuyvesant.
Bed-Study at that time was this intense intersection of rapid gentrification and stubborn, entrenched crime stats. And the 81st was essentially a factory.
A factory producing defective products, driven by the CompStat machine. For those listening who study urban policing, you know CompStat. But in the 81st, under Deputy Inspector Stephen Moriello, it wasn't a data tool anymore. It was a bludgeon.
It was. The command structure demanded green arrows. They needed to show year-over-year crime reduction, and the officers were just the raw material used to manufacture those statistics.
The mechanism of that manufacturing is what's so insidious.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about stopping actual crimes. It was about creating the illusion of order.
Right. Writing summonses for people just sitting on their own stoops, arresting citizens for effectively existing in public spaces,
And the reverse of that, refusing to take reports for actual violent crime.
downgrading a felony robbery to lost property so it wouldn't show up as a red dot on Moriello's CompStat map.
And this creates massive cognitive dissonance for Schoolcraft. Because of his background, he simply cannot process an order to falsify a record.
He refused to produce defective products. He wouldn't write the bogus summonses. He wouldn't turn away robbery victims.
Which makes him a target. In that culture, refusing to participate in the quota system isn't seen as being ethical. It's seen as mutiny.
His evaluations plummeted. They isolated him. They openly questioned his manhood. It was a completely hostile environment.
So he initiates a survival mechanism. He doesn't go to union reps. He buys the Olympus recorder.
It wasn't an emotional reaction. It was a tactical forensic calculation. It was he said, she said versus he said, the tape recorded.
And he didn't just record the dramatic confrontations. He recorded the sheer banality of the corruption. Roll calls, locker room chatter.
The sound of the precinct breathing, supervisors explicitly ordering activity, which was the sanitized euphemism for quotas. Over months, between 2008 and 2009, he built an archive of hundreds of hours of audio.
Which brings us to the turning point. October 7, 2009. He has this massive cache of evidence, and he takes it to the Quality Assurance Division, the QAD.
That was his crucial miscalculation. He approached QAD believing that revealing the empirical data would fix the system.
Because he thought the corruption was an anomaly.
Right. He didn't understand that the system was working exactly as designed. The quotas were the objective. He wasn't the diagnostic tool repairing a bug. To the NYPD, he was the error code.
He was the virus. And after that meeting, the retaliation escalated dramatically. His father, Larry, monitoring this from upstate, gets on what they called their father-son tactical channel and warns him.
Larry said, "They're going to come for you." He knew the institutional playbook.
Which sets the stage for Halloween, October 31st, 2009. Schoolcraft is at the precinct. He feels physically unsafe. The atmosphere is toxic. So at 3 p.m., an hour before his shift ends, he says he's sick and leaves.
He went home to his apartment in Queens. The precinct immediately marks him AWOL. Now, for any other job or even any other officer, leaving an hour early sick might get you a reprimand on Monday.
But they mobilize an entire task force.
Because it was never about the hour. It was about the vault. It was about neutralizing a data leak.
So at 6 p.m., Larry calls Adrian. They are outside.
This is where the story shifts from institutional corruption to a literal home invasion. It's 9 p.m. at 8710 88th Avenue. Deputy Chief Michael Marino is outside the door.
Marino is the second highest-ranking uniformed officer in Brooklyn North. He is not there to check on a sick employee.
He's leading a raid, and the pretext they use to bypass a warrant is classifying Schoolcraft as an emotionally disturbed person, an EDP.
It's the weaponization of psychiatry.
Exactly. They force entry. And because Schoolcraft had the presence of mind to hit record, we have the audio of state power physically crushing dissent.
The clarity of that tape is chilling. You hear Marino say, "Get up like a man, or they're going to treat you as an EDP."
Which is a complete contradiction. If he's having a genuine mental health crisis,
Well,
you don't threaten him into acting like a man. It was coercion.
Schoolcraft stays incredibly calm. He cites protocol, he says he's off duty and sick, but Marino escalates. He literally says, "I can't fucking stand him anymore."
And that's when the emergency service unit officers storm in, they stomp him, they cuff him.
But there is a massive technical failure on Marino's part during the assault.
Marino sees a recorder, confiscates it, and pockets it. He thinks he's neutralized the threat. He is completely unaware that Schoolcraft had a second backup recorder running in the room.
Capturing the cover-up in real time, they drag him out and take him to Jamaica Hospital.
This is where the complicity expands beyond the police department. This is medical complicity.
The police hand him over to the medical staff, claiming he was agitated, barricaded, and violent.
And doctors Isikoff and Lillian Aldona Bernier accept that police narrative unconditionally. Even though Schoolcraft is sitting there, completely calm, exhibiting no violent behavior.
It creates a structural catch-22 that is straight out of Kafka.
It really is. Schoolcraft tells the doctors, "I am not crazy. The police are after me because I have evidence of internal corruption."
And the doctors use that statement as proof of his insanity. They label him paranoid.
Because from their perspective, believing a massive police conspiracy is out to get you is a delusion. Except, in this case, the massive police conspiracy was literally standing in the hallway waiting for the paperwork.
They hold him for 6 days in the psychiatric ward.
Handcuffed to a gurney, surrounded by actual psychiatric patients, stripped of his autonomy, his communication, his dignity.
And when they finally release him, Jamaica Hospital sends him a bill for $7,185.
Charging him for the cost of his own illegal incarceration.
But the strategy failed. Because the backup recorder survived. The body of work survived.
And that archive changed the landscape of New York. He didn't keep it hidden. The audio found its way to the Village Voice. Graham Raymond published the NYPD tapes series.
It was explosive. The public heard the euphemisms. They heard the quotas. The series won the George Polk Award.
But more importantly, it provided the empirical foundation that civil rights lawyers had been desperate for. You look at Floyd versus City of New York.
The landmark case that ruled the NYPD's stop-and-frisk practices unconstitutional.
That ruling relied heavily on the atmosphere of pressure and quotas that Schoolcraft proved existed. He provided the metadata of the discrimination.
He filed a lawsuit of his own, seeking $50 million. But it never went to trial.
The city calculated the risk. A public trial would mean playing those tapes in open court. It would mean putting Marino and the doctors on the stand, so in 2015 they settled for $600,000.
Jamaica Hospital also settled, confidentially. But when you look at the unresolved justice of it all, Marino kept his pension, the doctors continued to practice medicine.
The institution absorbed the financial blow to protect its operators.
Looking at this from 2026, Adrian Schoolcraft is effectively a ghost in the machine. He lives a quiet life in Johnstown. The trauma of those 6 days of that entire ordeal is permanent.
But his legacy is the concept of the vault. He established the precedent that a single individual, armed with nothing but consumer-grade technology and an uncompromising adherence to the truth, can document and expose systemic institutional corruption.
He reversed the panopticon. Instead of the state watching the citizen wired himself to watch the state.
And it forces you to question whether his current silence in Johnstown is a hard-won peace, or if it represents the system's ultimate victory in neutralizing a threat.
That is exactly the kind of provocative thought you have to sit with when analyzing this case. The architecture of power hasn't disappeared. It's just adapted to the technology that exposed it.
We all carry recorders in our pockets now. The question is whether we have the psychological substrate to use them when the machine demands defective products.
Thank you for listening to the Golden Gems podcast. We'll be back next time with another deep dive. Until then, keep exploring, keep listening, and keep celebrating the power of uncompromising voices.